Imagine receiving a letter predicting a murder before it happens. No name, no address, just chilling details that come true every single time. What would you do if the killer seemed to know your every move? It started with an envelope, plain, unassuming, dropped at the front desk of the local police station. No return address, no postage stamp, just a neatly folded sheet of paper inside. The message was brief, but haunting. Tonight, 10 p.m. Elmwood Park, the old carousel. A man will die. Detective Laura Hayes was the first to see it. At first glance, she thought it was some kind of prank. Anonymous tips were common in her line of work, but this, it felt different. The tone of the words, the eerie precision, it gnawed at her. Despite her instincts screaming otherwise, Laura decided to investigate. She sent officers to Elmwood Park to keep watch. At exactly 10 p.m., they heard a blood-curdling scream. A man was found lying near the carousel, his throat slashed, just as the letter had described. The case immediately spiraled into chaos. Who had sent the letter? How could they have known about the murder before it happened? As Laura dug deeper, more letters started arriving. Each one predicted a crime, robberies, assaults, and more murders. Each time, the letter was maddeningly accurate, yet no one could figure out who was delivering them or why. The media caught wind of the story and dubbed the mysterious sender the Oracle. Fear gripped the city. Was the Oracle trying to warn people or taunting them? For Laura, the case became personal. She felt like a puppet dancing to the killer's tune. Every letter felt like a trap, leading her team into scenarios they couldn't stop in time. And then one day, a letter arrived with her name on it. Laura Hayes, midnight, the city docks, don't come alone. It was a direct challenge. She couldn't back down, but she knew walking into that trap could cost her everything. When the time came, she arrived at the docks, armed but cautious. The air was thick with tension. Shadows danced in the moonlight as Laura searched for any sign of movement. Then she heard it. A faint laugh. Slow clapping echoed from the shadows. Out stepped a hooded figure. In their hand was yet another letter, this one addressed to Laura herself. The figure spoke, their voice distorted. "You've been chasing the wrong thing all along, detective. It's not about the crimes. It's about you." Before she could react, the figure disappeared into the night, leaving behind only the letter. Laura opened it, her hands trembling. It contained a single line. "The final chapter begins now." As the hooded figure disappeared, Detective Laura Hayes stood frozen, the weight of the ominous message sinking in. The final chapter begins now. What did it mean? Who was behind this cruel game? Determined to end the nightmare, Laura rushed back to the station, the letter clutched tightly in her hand. She and her team analyzed every detail they had so far: the handwriting, the materials used for the letters, the locations of the crimes. A pattern began to emerge. All the locations had personal connections to her past cases. Laura's heart sank as the realization hit her. This wasn't just a series of random crimes. It was a vendetta, and she was at the center of it. One name kept resurfacing in her mind: Derek Cole, a man she had arrested years ago. He had been convicted of a string of brutal murders, but had sworn his innocence to the very end. Derek had died in prison under mysterious circumstances, but his family had vowed revenge. Could this be their doing? Before she could follow that lead, another letter arrived. This one was different, hand-delivered to her apartment. It read, "Tonight, 9 p.m., the warehouse on 12th Street. The truth awaits." Laura knew she couldn't ignore it. She suited up and called for backup, but told them to stay a block away until she signaled. If this was a trap, she wasn't going in blind. When she arrived at the warehouse, it was eerily quiet. Dust and decay hung in the air. the only sounds the creaking of old metal and her own footsteps. As she moved deeper inside, a projector suddenly flickered on, casting an image onto a blank wall. It was her, a collage of surveillance photos, case files, and news clippings about her most high-profile arrests. At the center of it all was a photo of Derek Cole, his eyes crossed out in red ink. "Do you see it now, detective?" A voice boomed, distorted but recognizable as the same one from the docks. The hooded figure stepped into the light, pulling back their hood to reveal Derek Cole's younger sister, Evelyn. "You took everything from me," Evelyn hissed, her voice shaking with rage. "My brother, my family. You turned us into villains, and now you're going to pay." Evelyn confessed that she had orchestrated every crime and sent every letter. She had used her knowledge of Laura's old cases to manipulate her, always staying one step ahead. But there was one final twist. Evelyn hadn't acted alone. Suddenly, Laura heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see one of her own colleagues, Officer Ryan Miller, aiming a gun at her. "Ryan?" Laura's voice cracked with disbelief. Ryan smirked. "You were always too good, Laura. Too perfect. You made the rest of us look bad. So when Evelyn came to me, offering a way to knock you off your pedestal, how could I say no?" Laura's mind raced. She had been betrayed from within, but she wasn't unprepared. Before entering the warehouse, she had activated a hidden body cam and sent a silent alert to her backup. As Ryan raised his weapon, red and blue lights flooded the warehouse. SWAT officers stormed in, disarming both Ryan and Evelyn before they could act. Evelyn screamed as she was dragged away, her plans crumbling before her eyes. "This isn't over, detective. You'll never escape what you've done." But Laura wasn't listening. She turned to Ryan, her former friend, now a disgraced officer. "You think bringing me down would make you better? All it's done is reveal the kind of man you really are." As the criminals were taken into custody, Laura stood outside the warehouse, breathing deeply for the first time in weeks. The nightmare was over, but its scars would remain. In the days that followed, she reflected on the case. Evelyn had been wrong about one thing. Laura wasn't haunted by her past. She was defined by it. And as long as there were people out there seeking to harm others, she would continue to fight for justice, no matter the cost. Sometimes, the truth doesn't set you free. It chains you to a purpose. For Laura Hayes, that purpose was clear: to always stay one step ahead of the darkness. And so, the mystery of the black letter came to an end. As you turn off the lights tonight, ask yourself, what would you do if you were in Laura's shoes? Could you face the darkness and survive? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more chilling tales. See you in the next story.